Hi everyone, this is Pradeep Khanna from Sydney in Australia. I am the Executive Director Asia Pacific for the Global VR AR Association, which is the largest VR AR focused association in the world. We have 70 plus chapters worldwide, 4,400 plus entities registered with us, and a community of tens and thousands of people. Today we have two global leaders. We have Chaitanya, who is a vice president, business head, CTO, and head of emerging technologies for Whistling Woods, which is among the top 10 film education centers in the world. He not only has academia experience, but he also has industry experience. And along with Chaitanya, we have Raghav. Raghav is a very experienced filmmaker. I find his name cropping up very often, and he brings very strong perspectives from industry. So, welcome Chaitanya, and welcome Raghav, and welcome everyone else joining on the session today. And today we are going to be looking at virtual production. What is virtual production? And how does it blend into storytelling as well as into filmmaking? Over to you, Chaitanya. What I want to do is to for you to tell our audience about your professional profile.
Thank you so much, Pradeep, and good morning, afternoon, evening to wherever you are, whoever is listening to this session at the VRARA Global Summit. So very happy to talk about virtual production. Now, before we get into it, just quick two lines on myself. So Pradeep's already introduced me, but so I would like to say that I've explored multiple professions in life, from chartered accountancy to event management and entertainment consulting to film and media education, and now film and media technology development and evangelizing. So that's my background. Over the last decade, I have been at the forefront of several emerging workflows and emerging media technologies, both setting up the academic curriculum and teaching methodologies for it here in India at Whistling Woods, as well as pushing it out to the industry. So I hope to take you on a journey of virtual production and what we are doing here.
Thank you very much, Chaitanya. And now it's over to you, Raghav. Please tell us about your professional background and experience.
Thank you, Pradeep, and thank you, Chaitanya, so much for having me here today. And I'm Raghav Jairath, and I basically am a storyteller, to put it as simply as I can. And for storytelling, I look at a lot of different fields, whether it's events, whether it's design, whether it's an installation, an exhibition, whether it's a short film, whether it's a documentary. So I personally try to find stories in all these mediums and get it out in the right way possible. And virtual production was something that really caught our attention. Now, with the past 2 years exploring virtual productions, we are still trying to figure out the best means to enhance storytelling, and it certainly has.
Fabulous, Raghav. Now, what we are going to be looking today is yes, virtual production, of course, but we'll be looking at the business, technology, and creative side. We'll also be looking at industry academia perspectives. And more important, we'll also touch upon Bollywood versus Hollywood. And before I hand it over to Chaitanya, when you deal with people from the industry, do you look at their accounts or do you look at their emerging technologies and film production? I mean, what an amazing career from chartered accountancy to now head of emerging technologies and kind of talking about virtual production. Man, this is a great story. So over to you, Chaitanya. What is this word virtual production, and can you give us a bit of a walkthrough, showcase something?
Sure. So, firstly, to answer a question, it's the most interesting part of interacting with industry and looking at the various aspects of it. Very oddly enough, the ones who have the best accounts are the ones who are the most curious and ask the most questions. So I look at people in the industry who aren't afraid to use the phrase "I don't know" or "Can you tell me?" Because I am that. So I often say I don't know more than anybody else I know, because what I believe is the ratio of the known to unknown is always constant. So the more you know, the more you don't know. So that's really what we believe in. Now about virtual production, I think what I'd like to do is just take everybody through a quick presentation, give you an idea of our approach to virtual production. So what is virtual production, right? So it's essentially reimagining the entire filmmaking pipeline to do in the virtual world what has been done in live action for 100 plus years now. And this reimagining of the pipeline is a combination of using three-dimensional assets, three-dimensional worlds, real cameras, real lights, as well as virtual cameras and virtual lights. All this is put together on a bed, on a gaming engine bed, using object tracking as the cement or as the glue that put all these bricks together, right? And this is just an example of some of the kind of content that's been made using some virtual filmmaking technologies and pipelines. So it's not recent, it's been around for a while. So the Matrix trilogy was probably the first big set of content to use it, and then it's been used over the years for several animated as well as live action as well as VFX heavy pieces of content, right? So these are the three production pipelines as they exist today. If you look at the first pipeline, it's a live action primacy pipeline where the main content is shot is in live action, and there's an add-on of animation, there's an add-on of VFX. This is 99% of the filmed entertainment that we see around us. Then you have animated content where animation is the primacy with an add-on of live action and VFX. So an example would be Jungle Book. And then you have the content primacy of the VFX, where the base platform is visual effects. And then there is some amount of live action, some amount of animation, a significant amount of live action and a significant amount of animation thrown in. For example, the Avengers. So these are the production pipelines as they exist today. However, as the world has evolved and as gaming engines have become more and more proficient, and as digitalization of content has become more and more prevalent, we have moved to the virtual production pipeline as it is reimagined today. So as you can see, the every single shot is broken up into two key components. One is the action asset. Action asset is broadly described as almost anything that moves or anything that needs to move or anything that impacts what you see on screen, right? Anything that is changing. And the world is the universe that the action asset is set in. And this is defined literally on a shot-to-shot basis. So on a shot-to-shot basis, the world and the action asset change. So your action assets can be of multiple types. So you can have live action content that's shot in a video, so a flat video. You can also have volumetrically captured live action content, which is a volumetric capture of an individual or of an animal or of something else. You have computer generated created content, which is animated content in flat, so either in 2D animation or 3D animation, or it can be a CG created volumetric asset in 3-dimensional, or it can be a motion captured piece of video where the output is either flat, which is normal video in stereo or mono, or it could be volumetric. Now this sits in a world where the world can be a real set, it can be a virtual set, which is created in the computer, which can just be a simple flat virtual set, which could be like a matte painting, or it could be a virtual set which is created using photogrammetry, which is active, which allows us to move through the set with a virtual camera. It could just be a 360 photograph. So, a photograph of a room, which is then replaced over a green screen box. Or you could have LEDs on which you are projecting content, video content that you have shot in the past somewhere, which is then the actors and the action assets can interact with in real time. Now, all this is put on a bed of a gaming engine, which is virtual production enabled. Now, essentially, the enablement of virtual production happens through object and motion tracking. So if it is a gaming engine that is accepting both action asset data as well as world data, and is allowing us to track them individually using object and motion tracking, that gaming engine then can be used as the foundational bed of virtual production. And with virtual production, you can take many output formats. You can take a output format which is a standard flat screen 2D or 3D video. You can take output format which is in a 360 VR video, which is 3 degrees of freedom. So, or it can be a volumetric 6 degrees of freedom experience, which allows the viewer to move around inside the immersive experience. So let's look at a couple of examples, right? And of some of the concepts that we've spoken about. So let's look at photogrammetry.
So in a flat video, we would not be able to change angles of viewing of the house unless we had shot them beforehand. We would not be able to manipulate our way into the house if we wanted unless we had actually taken a physical camera and walked into the real house. But because this is a photogrammetry asset, we can do all those things. We can change our point of view, we can change the angle of seeing the house. We can even take a virtual camera and walk into the house, walk into any of the rooms, and mount the virtual camera on a virtual crane or a virtual dolly and take whatever kind of shots that we want inside the house.
So this is a good example of photogrammetry, right? Now let's look at another concept, which is volumetric capture. Now, normally when we shoot a video, you're essentially, even though you are capturing the depth of the shot and the scene, everything is essentially flat, right? Everything is on one plane. With volumetric capture, what you can do is you are actually creating an asset, a digital asset, which doesn't exist on one plane, but actually exists in depth. So there is a Z axis to the content that you are acquiring.
Now this is a photograph of a shot of our volumetric capture setup. What you can see here is there are 6 Azure Kinect sensors which are being commandeered by 3 separate computers, and there is one computer that's monitoring everything. And there's a standard issue treadmill that's there on which a person will walk, and we will be capturing him in volumetric form. So this is a 1-second shot of a person walking, which has been captured volumetrically. And right now you're seeing it playing on loop as we rotate it to make sure that, we've caught it all. So as you can see, it's not exactly perfect because this is raw capture and it will get treated or processed to make sure that, it looks perfectly fine, just like it would if it was a video shot. In this case, what we've done is we've taken the asset and treated it to, give it the polish that it needs. And then we've added a little bit of jazz to it. We've also added some lighting to it. So the asset is carrying a movable light source.
These were 2 examples of capturing content in depth, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play back to you an example of where this specific asset that we have captured in volumetric form, both these assets actually, we are going to overlay them on video, standard flat shot video using one drone shot as well as a regular shot, to see how you can create content in virtual production mode. In this case, what you're going to see is we've taken the action figure of this person walking, and we're going to be deploying it over several other video shots, which are standard video shots taken. And you'll see how much flexibility there is when you are doing it in virtual production. You can at will change camera angles, camera movements. You can go as small as you want, as big as you want. You can reduce or increase the size of the action. So there's multiple flexibility that a virtual production pipeline allows you when you're working with a volumetric asset. As you just saw, I've just paused it for a second. As you just saw, just by changing the size of this asset, we made it look like the camera is moving from a mid-level or a top view to a close-up of his or her of his feet. Now, this flexibility is very important, and this is what virtual production allows us. This is where we've taken the polished asset and we're making him walk through the woods. As you can see, the lighting is interacting very well with the environment. We're able to get that necessary impact. We're able to create the feeling that this person is actually walking through the woods and have the impact of the asset fall on the environment as well. So this person is actually, obviously there is no real light that was there in the woods when this was shot. And this is a movable light source that is casting an impact on a pre-recorded flat video shot. Now, this kind of flexibility cannot happen outside of the virtual production world. Now, let's look at one example of virtual filmmaking that's already being used in the filmed entertainment world.
We like to try and relate virtual production to traditional production. So virtual pre-production is previs and some of the tech viz and running up to the shoot. Then there's virtual production, which is simulcam and potentially some more tech viz. And then there's virtual post-production, which is post-viz. So taking the previs and compositing it onto the plates.
There's no other way to make the type of content that we are approaching. I can't fly to Pandora and shoot Avatar. There is no way to do that. You have to create some mechanism whereby the directors and the creatives involved can get out there and actually produce their film in a meaningful way.
Game engines, which have recently become a very big part of virtual production, they've really upped the quality of the render we're able to achieve. They've also allowed us to more accurately simulate the real world in terms of lighting.
Just in the last year and a half, the aesthetic of this stuff has just been cranked up, and how much more we can do in real time.
Unreal is allowing us to compress the different divisions of viz so that it's not so much a pre-viz and a during viz or a post-viz. It's kind of just, you can do it all at the same time.
So this is a combination of motion capture. This is a combination of a CG, 3D asset in the background, and a physical set. So this is a good mix of everything that virtual production allows us to do.
Just simply the fact that everything is live and you can have a conversation with the actors and you can make little changes, it just makes a better product. It just makes a better movie.
To make movies using virtual production, and particularly with Unreal, with all the real-time capabilities, it's an opportunity to redesign the whole process of filmmaking. You know, something that would take us overnight or a week to do, suddenly you can do immediately, and you can get immediate feedback on what you're doing, which opens up a world of possibilities of to do things differently.
We know it'll have completely gotten there when we're starting to do rom-coms using virtual production. Then we'll know we've definitely made it.
So this is a kind of a good overview that I wanted to give of virtual production, the various aspects of it. So flat screen video we know, CG animated video we know. The 2-3 new things that are there is obviously volumetric capture, photogrammetry, and then putting and synthesizing this whole thing on a common platform.
Fabulous. What gets me thinking, Chaitanya, is that is this an emerging technology or a production, or is it already happening? Is it mainstream? What is the current state of play, both in academia as well as in industry? I will get back to you also, Raghav, for industry perspectives, but first to you, Chaitanya.
So, thankfully, this is one of those areas where industry and academia are working together. So if you look at the ETC, which is the Entertainment Technology Center at USC, with which we are working very closely, by the way, at Whistling Woods as well, they are working very closely with Hollywood to actually create standards and profiles and encourage more and more use of virtual production. It is quicker, it is faster, it is more environment efficient because you don't need to build big sets and then break them down. It allows the actors to be in interact with as few people as possible, which we never thought we'd be saying because of the pandemic. And what it kind of allows us to do is it allows us and screenwriters and content creators to visualize things that they never could do in the past, right? And it's really this single one catalyst that is kind of pushing. That's the rocket booster that's going to light the rocket booster that's going to get this going both in the industry as well as in academia. So we at Whistling Woods, our goal has always been to be 4 years ahead of the industry, and that's why we've already started working on virtual production in 2021. And we expect the industry to, at least in India, to have some decent mainstream adoption of this in about 3 years, which is when students that join Whistling Woods this year will graduate 3 years from now. So we're hoping that the industry will be aware of what virtual production is, and then the kids that we graduate will take that and shepherd that. They will become the sharp end of the stick that forces the industry almost, or encourages the industry to adopt more and more and more virtual production techniques. Globally, it's already happening. It's already happening in big productions like Mandalorian, and you saw Rogue One, and you saw in Planet of the Apes, and so on and so forth. But in India, I would say it's about we're about 2 years away from mainstream adoption, and we're hoping filmmakers like Raghav and Friday Filmworks, which is the production house that he works for, which Neeraj Pandey runs and heads, will be the ones who push the envelope.
That's interesting. And it's good to know that you're only 4 years ahead of the industry and not 10 years, because then the disconnect would have been much bigger.
Much more, yeah.
Now, Raghav, over to you. What is your understanding of virtual production? And what comments do you want to provide from an industry perspective and actually somebody who's getting their hands dirty in making a film? So over to you.
I'll first start off with what our company feels about it, because that is the most direct to me currently. So Friday Filmworks, my producer Sheetal Bhatia, my director Neeraj Pandey, we all are extremely excited about it. There are things that we are seeing which gives us more clarity. So earlier in traditional VFX, what was happening was we used to put up a green screen, we had a storyboard, we had basic sketches, and then we would be told, okay, fine, the guy is going to stand here in the background, this is going to come up. Now we are all looking at the green screen and trying to visualize. So somewhere it used to be a little simpler for me because I have a design background. But I used to see around other people on the set, they would just stare at the green screen and be like, okay, what will come? And when we go into post, what happens is we have a lot of compositors who are working on shots. So every shot, so if a scene has say 12 shots that have gone for VFX, so there are 12 or there are at least about 3 to 4 different people working on different shots. So what happens is every compositor becomes a DOP in himself. He's lighting up the background himself. He's making little things, and of course they're doing it to their best knowledge. They're doing it to make it look as real as possible. It's not, nobody has an intention to make it look bad, but perspective was something that we used to struggle with a lot. With virtual production coming in, with previs coming in, we are now finally able to have a look at it live, not just from a 2D perspective, but from a three-dimensional perspective also. So in the industry, we are extremely excited. We are all, I would say, exploring right now. I won't say that we've reached somewhere. We are all exploring. We are all sharing knowledge amongst each other. Sometimes some friend comes up with something. Sometimes Chaitanya, his academy, comes up with something extremely exciting. We had a great session with VR also a couple of years back with Chaitanya and his team. And it was eye-opening. So I would just put it, we are exploring right now, but it's giving us a lot of clarity and it helps us in storytelling.
So let me ask you, Raghav, that actually have you actually made a virtual production or actually leveraged virtual production?
Yes, we have. We have been fortunate enough to work on a couple of virtual productions. These are all test productions that we are doing right now. It started off with a basic thing just to see if we can, without going to a location, say abroad or other places. The first step that we started off with, how can we not go abroad and do this? So whether it is we scan the entire environment, or whether it is we do a LiDAR scan or something. So something that came across was in Special Ops, one of the web series that we have recently produced. There was a scene in which we have an inquiry room and we have 3 characters who are sitting there, and there's an interrogation that is happening over there. Now, in the second part of the season, we wanted to recreate that room all over again. So we were looking at different options. Okay, fine. If we do not have to go to the location with times like this, how do we recreate everything? So the first time when we had shot, we had clicked a lot of photographs from different angles to see if we can, create the whole environment again. So we tried it. I would say we were successful to a certain level, but again, we are still exploring all of that. We have a lot of data. We are learning every now and then. A lot of VFX companies are coming forward. They are coming up with different solutions, with different tracker systems. Every time, I think every month we are having updates on tracker system, the lags that we were getting. So we are in a good position now.
What I like is the good level of industry and academia collaboration that I'm seeing, the interaction that I'm seeing with people with Chaitanya and Raghav and the likes. Now, coming back to the business side of the story, and when I look at the number of films being made in India, they're roughly ballpark around 2000. Whereas Hollywood has somewhere between 700 to 800 kind of films every year. Now, what is your current take that how many movies in India at the moment, out of those 700 and 800, are leveraging virtual production? Is it 1? Is it 0? Is it 100? What is ballpark?
So it's very interesting because this is how also we look at it, because it gives us some idea of, how long is the tunnel, because then you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know if the tunnel is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years long, right? So, just to kind of go half a step back. So you're saying we're making about 1800 films is the general average that we make. But so that's about 3,500 hours of original content. But more importantly, we're making almost twice that of original OTT content programming, right? Now, the way to look at it is to look at both film and that put together. Because whether it's Netflix, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Z or Alt or Sony or Disney Plus Hotstar or all the other platforms in India that are commissioning, we have 30 commissioning platforms. So a significant amount of new money being spent is going to be by these platforms, and that's where I see a lot of the also experimentation happening, because if you get it right there, right, that becomes a template then that can be mapped across a much wider content spectrum. Right? Now, if I see industry over the last 2 years, I think there are about 4 or 5 film productions that have deployed virtual production in some manner. Obviously from a varying extent. So some have done only say 10 shots, whereas some of them have done 60% of the film in virtual production. So between Hindi and the South Indian film industry, I would see about in 4 years from now, we should start to see about at least 25 to 30% adoption.
Hey,
Is
great.
yeah. So I think we should look at about, I would be happy if we saw a combined, say 2000 hours of original content by 2025 that was created using virtual production.
And would a lot of this also has been driven by COVID? Or is that forced people also to look at this actively?
I wouldn't say only COVID. I think it's a combination of COVID plus the fact that it is just much more efficient. And I mean, I know in India, we say that, kind of script is king or script is queen. But sadly, in India, actors are still kings and queens. So the dates kind of revolve around, that. So if, for example, I can go to a Salman Khan or a Shah Rukh Khan or a Amir Khan and tell them that, you know what, instead of flying for, one whole day to reach, whatever, Brazil, and then shooting there for a week and then coming back and, with the quarantine and with the jet lag and all that, if I can avoid that, if you can give me, just 1 week to shoot you in Mumbai, where I have already gone and shot the entire Brazilian Amazon, and now I'm able to have a Amir Khan wearing an old man's dress and walk in carrying a movable light through the Amazon rainforest, he will jump at it. I will become his favorite producer, right? So I think that is what will really spur adoption of virtual production in India. It's really going to be sahuliyat, I mean efficiency, right?
No, it is
Which will
obvious.
do it. I mean, I'm being a little cynical, but I really think this is what will push it in India, apart from the fact that it will save money.
So, Raghav, what about the availability of skill sets in the industry? Because there's a lot of technology involved.
Yeah, I believe right now there are a lot of kids, the new generation, they're really training on it. They are, so if you ask me currently, like right now, or I would say 6 months before when we were doing our tests for an upcoming project that we are supposed to do, the amount of artists were less. But since this lockdown and the people that I've been in touch with, I found an increase of students who are very curious to learn about it. I have found filmmakers who are very, very curious to know more about it. There are DOPs who are getting more curious about it, and they want to come out of their traditional methods and want to explore this. So we are still growing. I think it will still take a year for students to get trained. We're still, I think, at just about say in craftsmanship, we should be at around 20-30%. We have a way to go right now. I mean, even if you look at Unreal, they just did their fellowship. That was the first batch that happened. They themselves are exploring it. The new batch is going to come up soon. They have virtual classes that are happening. So a lot of students from India, from Mumbai are signing up for those classes. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, people are extremely curious.
Good.
Just to quickly add to that. So the curriculum that we have built in virtual production goes live in August for existing Whistling students. So we will start at the second year level of our 3-year program. So the batch that graduates in 2023 will be virtual production enabled. And the students that graduate in 2022 will have enhanced understanding of virtual production. I wouldn't say that they will be as proficient as we would like them to be, but we should start to see about 50 to 60 well-trained virtual production specialists come out each year over the next 2 years. And then that number should be, I think, will become, I think, about 150 from 2024 onwards.
So one thing is pretty clear to me, that the virtual production is a great asset for creativity, because it gives you the ability to visualize and to play around with what you're actually going to go through. It also tells me that, you see, from a technology perspective, you have gone through, and there is a good integration which is needed from the gaming engines perspective, from the photographic equipment, and from technology perspective. What from a business perspective, also it is telling me that there's a clear business case, because I can see that the expenses are getting cut short. But I can see the debate between capital expense and running expense. So how much is the capital expense involved relative to standard production? Because that has to be amortized over a number of years. Whereas the running expense, it can be written off from your revenues, which you as an accountant know very well.
Yeah.
So what is the capex was?
I agree. But, the way that we look at it, and we've done a couple of very back of the napkin calculation case studies on it. So if you look at a standard 10-day shoot that somebody would have to do, say, in the middle of a rainforest in the Amazon, right? So the example that we gave, right? So you're talking of 2 days of travel to Brazil for about 15 heads of department, 2 of their assistants each, and approximately, say, 10 actors, right? So you're looking at that. So 2 days of travel, stay, that cost, shooting in a new location. So you will have some production teething issues, stuff that didn't show up, etc., etc. So a 10-day shoot becomes a 15-day shoot, 12-day shoot at least. Then 2 more days of coming back. So now you're basically, you've been gone for 3 weeks for a 10-day shoot. If I take that, and if I take the cost that I would pay for renting out a virtual production ready studio in Mumbai, my per day production cost, even if it is 150% of what I would spend as a per day production cost in the Brazilian rainforest, it's still cost effective for me. So what that allows the studio to do is to get that little bit more money amount in rent, that little bit more money amount in equipment rental, and most importantly, their equipment is fixed. It doesn't have to go, it doesn't have to travel, there is no insurance, there is no breaking of the camera, there is none of that stuff. So if you actually take a much wider bird's eye view, I actually see, despite the increased capital expenditure, annualized saving of anywhere between 35 to 40%.
It's been a very fascinating journey, and I can see how filmmaking and storytelling will be evolving over the years. Now we are almost up to our time. Now, any last minute comments, Chaitanya and Raghav, you would like to make before we make it a call? Chaitanya, any last minute comments?
So, I mean, yeah, I want to, but before that, I just want to quickly ask Raghav a question as to, because he's a creative artist, from a creative perspective, and what we've seen at Whistling Woods as well, is that when we did do an overview of virtual production for the students, I saw the eyes light up of the screenwriting students the most, because they are no longer, for them, it was like they had been set free, that they no longer have to write within the framework of reality, right? They can, they're set free, they can do what they want. So, is that kind of feeling? Because that's really what will promote us exploring new ideas. As a creative person, how do you see that aspect, the liberty that virtual production gives you?
So actually, it's a great question, and yes, our eyes light up like there is no tomorrow. To answer this question in a context of what is happening now currently, I recently we did a documentary called Secrets of Sonali, which is on Discovery. Now we have to do a franchise and more seasons to that documentary also. So the moment now when virtual productions came over. And I've been reading every day. I'm still trying to learn, still trying to explore, still trying to understand what it is. So automatically, the moment we understood that now I can take the camera wherever I want and I can take my host or an actor with it. So we are trying to look at something where we want to go underwater. That is where suddenly virtual productions was able to, I would say it was able to show me something that I wouldn't have seen. I would have to dive inside, watch it, then figure it out. There's a cost to it, but I'm able to do this much beforehand, and I can take my host. So yes, it is opening up a lot of ideas in our head. So the pitch document also that we gave over, it had these ideas, and these ideas when they were presented, you automatically see the other person on the other side of the table, their eyes light up also. They want to see something that they've not seen before. So yes, it is helping us a lot in storytelling, in telling ideas from a very, very different format, and very, very excited actually for what's this course. We can also try this out now. I think you're trying.
Of course.
So I can really see Raghav's eyes, kind of coming out and lighting up so brightly. But there is no further time for the last minute or last comments. So I would say a big thank you to you, Chaitanya, and to Raghav for joining today. This is just the beginning of our story, and we will regularly get you updates as to how virtual production is tracking. Bye for now.